I want you to picture the scene. A headline explodes across your feed claiming that Captain Ibrahim Traoré has stunned the world by turning down a massive investment from Bill Gates to build a vaccine venture called Vaxvine. $50 million on the table, a new plant promised, vaccines rolling off the lines, and a leader who says no. It sounds cinematic. It sounds disruptive. And it raises a fierce question that cuts to the heart of health, sovereignty, and trust. If the money is real, why refuse it? And if the story is not, why is it spreading so fast? Tonight, we are going to slow down, strip away the noise, and follow the facts. Then we will explore the deeper forces that make a story like this catch fire across the United States, Africa, and the wider world. Stay with me. By the end, you will understand both the reality on the ground and the bigger contest over who gets to shape African health policy in the 21st century. Let us start with the claim itself. Vaxvine, the supposed vaccine project, appears in social posts and viral videos, yet there is no credible public record of a Gates-backed program by that name or of a formal $50 million offer made to Traoré for vaccine production in Burkina Faso. When stories surface without official communiques, reputable press coverage, or grant listings, you should hear a bell ring in your mind. It does not mean the concerns behind the story are fake. It means we need to check what is verifiable and what is not. As of now, the Vaxvine label and the precise investment figure look like the scaffolding of a rumor built on top of something else that did happen. Here is what did happen, and it matters. In late August, Burkina Faso's government halted a project known as Target Malaria. This is a research consortium, supported by the Gates Foundation and other donors, that has worked for years on genetically modified mosquitoes designed to reduce malaria transmission. Burkina Faso had hosted contained and limited field research for this program. Then national authorities ordered an immediate stop, sealed facilities, and called for the destruction of samples under strict protocol. That decision, publicly announced, is traceable and on the record. It is a sharp turn. It is also different from rejecting a vaccine factory. One is about gene-modified mosquitoes as a vector control strategy, the other would be about manufacturing vaccines. They are not the same technology, not the same risk profile, and not the same policy choice. Why would a government say stop to an internationally funded malaria research program? Start with sovereignty. Since Traoré took power, his message has been consistent: the country sets its own terms with foreign partners. Health projects are not an exception. When research touches ecosystems, insects, and communities, the politics become even more sensitive. Local civil society groups, regional commentators, and government scientists can push back on perceived external pressure. Even if regulators had recently granted limited authorizations for controlled releases of non-gene-drive mosquitoes, political leadership can still step in and change course if they think public trust is not there, if the risk calculations look different, or if the project has become a symbol of outside control. Next, look at risk perception and communication. Genetically modified organisms ignite public anxiety. Even when scientific committees say the risk is manageable, leaders have to manage fears about unintended ecological effects and long-term consequences. The real and the perceived blend together. If information campaigns lag behind, if opponents frame the project as a Western experiment on African soil, if influencers position it as an affront to national dignity, consent can evaporate. In that climate, a suspension can be framed as precaution and as political strength. Now add the wider context. The Sahel is in the middle of a geopolitical realignment. Military governments in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have emphasized independence from older Western security and development relationships. Public opinion has shifted. The audiences that cheer sovereignty also view global health initiatives with new skepticism. Against that backdrop, a sharp move against a Gates-funded project resonates. It says, we choose the tools, the partners, and the pace. Whether you agree or not, it is a coherent message to a domestic base. Here is the twist that complicates the viral narrative. Burkina Faso is not categorically rejecting vaccines. In fact, the malaria vaccine rollout has reached multiple African countries, including Burkina Faso, through global partnerships that long predate Traoré's government. The Gates Foundation is a major supporter of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and recently pledged fresh funding to help low-income countries deploy routine childhood immunizations and newer tools like malaria vaccines. Those are separate channels from Target Malaria's genetic strategies. So the real picture is not a simple yes or no to Gates and vaccines. It is a case-by-case political decision within a crowded health ecosystem. So where did the Vaxvine storyline come from? Likely from the collision between a dramatic, easy-to-share headline and a complicated policy move that is harder to explain. A suspension of gene-modified mosquito trials does not fit neatly into the template of a leader supposedly slamming the door on a vaccine factory. The word sounds similar. The stakes feel similar. The internet blurs them together. That is how an unverified label can ride on top of a verified decision and go viral. It satisfies a desire for simple heroes and villains. It rewards speed over accuracy. But the deeper questions underneath the rumor are legitimate. Who gets to decide the balance between urgency and caution when malaria still kills at a terrifying scale across Africa? How should countries weigh the promise of innovative tools against the uncertainty of ecological side effects? How should philanthropy operate across borders without undermining democratic consent? And how do leaders build or rebuild public trust after years of polarized debate around vaccines during the pandemic? Let me sketch the competing arguments the Burkina Faso government may be weighing, because they reveal the fault lines you are seeing in this story. On one side, proponents argue that malaria remains one of the continent's deadliest diseases and that every month lost is measured in lives. They point to controlled trials, to regulatory steps taken by national biosafety agencies, and to the history of philanthropy accelerating access to vaccines that markets would otherwise ignore. They cite the progress of the malaria vaccine rollout and argue that vector control research should move in parallel, not pause. On the other side, skeptics say communities have not given meaningful consent, that ecological risks are poorly understood outside laboratory and pilot settings, and that once you release modified insects, you cannot easily recall them. They argue that philanthropy sometimes sets agendas that outpace local deliberation, that the optics of foreign-funded genetic projects on African soil are combustible, and that leaders have a duty to hit pause until the science and the social license are stronger. In this view, suspension is not anti-science, it is pro-sovereignty and pro-prudence. Now, what about the money? Philanthropic support for vaccines and malaria control is real and measurable, but it mostly flows through large multilateral and research channels, not single-country one-off factories branded with catchy names. When you hear a clean dollar figure attached to a sensational new project without corroboration in foundation grant databases, corporate releases, or government notices, caution is warranted. Investments in vaccine access often look like multi-year commitments to alliances, procurement funds, or price-shaping agreements with manufacturers, not a single check handed to a head of state. The rumor language that circulates online reshapes those complex pipelines into a familiar story frame. A rich donor makes an offer, a nationalist leader rejects it, the crowd cheers. It makes for a punchy thumbnail and a trending clip. It does not usually match how global health finance actually works. There is also a communication lesson here for philanthropies and governments. If a country is considering a suspension, announce it with transparent reasoning. If a foundation is funding research, post clear updates in accessible language, not just in technical briefs. If opposition groups have concerns, put their questions on the record and answer them. In an information vacuum, rumor becomes the author. The way to keep public trust is to narrate your own decisions in plain language before someone else narrates them for you. Let us come back to the core of tonight's topic. Did Traoré reject a verified $50 million vaccine manufacturing offer called Vaxvine? There is no credible public evidence of that. Did his government suspend a Gates-backed gene-modified mosquito program and order samples destroyed under protocol? Yes, that is publicly stated by both the government and the project's own communications. Those are two different propositions. Conflating them turns a specific policy decision about one malaria control strategy into a general rejection of vaccine investments, and that distortion serves engagement metrics more than it serves the truth. So what is the reason behind the real decision? The most convincing explanation is a blend of sovereignty politics, risk management, and public consent. A leader who has built legitimacy on independence from external influence will act accordingly when a high-profile, foreign-funded scientific project becomes controversial at home. Whether you agree with that call or not, it is internally consistent with the narrative Traoré has offered his people since day one. It is also a warning to international actors: if your science is not accompanied by deep, patient, community-level trust-building, your project may have the best data in the world and still lose the political argument. Before we close, I want to speak directly to viewers in the United States who care about both African sovereignty and global health. You can hold two thoughts at once. One, that philanthropy has helped save millions of lives through vaccines and malaria control. Two, that countries are right to demand agency, accountability, and clarity before adopting novel technologies or large external funds. The future is not a choice between submission and isolation. It is a hard road of partnership, transparency, and respect, where local scientists, local journalists, and local communities co-author the path forward. Here is where I want to hear from you. If you were in Traoré's position, would you have suspended the genetically modified mosquito research now, or would you have allowed it to proceed under tighter oversight? If a verifiable vaccine manufacturing proposal came tomorrow with clear terms and independent local ownership, should Burkina Faso accept it, and under what safeguards? Do you believe philanthropic funding shapes priorities in a way that sometimes undermines public consent, or is it a vital bridge that governments cannot replace? What does genuine community consent look like in your view, and how would you measure it? Tell me your reasoning, not just your conclusion. If you found this analysis useful, share it with someone who has seen the viral headline and wants to understand the full story behind it. Subscribe for more deep dives into African policy, politics, and the global forces that shape both. Like the video to help it reach others, and leave a thoughtful comment with your take on the questions I posed. Your voice helps the channel cut through the noise and keep the conversation honest.